Hello, hello. Welcome to the Odds on Serie A. We are here to analyze match day one with our Italian and European football expert, Daniele Fisichella, Il Tipser. How are you, Danny?
Ciao Leo, ciao, all very well. Well, looking forward to the season, looking forward to do this show with you as well. I think this Serie A season, this title race is going to be even closer than the one we had last year. So it's very important for all the teams to start well. There is very little margin for error, I think.
For anyone new to our videos, I will tell you what you can expect, which is tips and predictions for all 10 games of match day one in Serie A. And by the end of the show, Daniele will share what he believes is the safe bet of this round of fixtures. And also he will share his ACCA. Before we start, just a kindly reminder, as always, for you guys just to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell for all the latest uploads. Danny, our first trip is to Milano. Milan at home, the reigning champions of Italy, receiving the visit of Udinese. They just added De Ketelare, a very good young prospect for their midfield. They finished 11 years waiting to lift the trophy last season. Is it hard to disagree? I believe with the bookies when we see that they are offering a very low 1.41 for a Milan win. Although knowing that last season this encounter finished in a draw on both occasions, do you believe will be a little bit wise to put some little money on a draw, which is at 490? How do you see this one unfolding?
I think Milan are favorite with reason and should be winning this one. That's why I went for Milan to win 2-0, which pays well, which pays 225. Look, Milan have strengthened the team, of course, with the arrival of the Ketelare. They wanted to sign him all summer long, and in the end they got him. They've had a very precise strategy. They want to sign young players that can develop, and they've done it time and time again. It's one of the youngest teams to win the Scudetto last season. But they've shown a great organization, a great team spirit. It is a team that has improved a lot with Pioli. And if you think about it, it's a little bit like the sliding doors. 2 years and a half ago, they were just about to sign Ralf Rangnick. They didn't. They kept with Pioli. See where they are, the two clubs now. I leave to you the conclusion. Anyway, why do I go for Milan to win 2-0? Because last year, Mike Maignan kept 17 clean sheets, the best goalkeeper in Serie A. They had the best defense. They have strengthened as well the defensive midfield so far this season with the arrival of Pobega, for example, from Torino, although they miss Kessie. I know they need to sign a defender at the moment because obviously they sold Romagnoli to Lazio, but it's not going to be an issue for match day one. And also what Pioli has done so far in pre-season, they've done a very lighter work compared to the other teams. So not a lot of charges to be quick out the block. This is a very important season, especially the month of August. We got 4 games in Italy. You need to start well. Udinese, can they get this season more than 47 points they got last year? I don't think so. And actually, when I look at them, it reminds me of Watford. Well, of course, they got the same owner. They changed 4 managers in 4 seasons. So now it's Sottil's turn, a debutant in Serie A. And what Udinese does, and they've done it very well through the years, is that they bring young players, they develop them, they sold them. They sold Molina to Atletico Madrid this season. Last year, they sold De Paul to Atletico Madrid as well. Probably Destiny Udogie is going to go to Tottenham to join Antonio Conte. We don't know whether Deulofeu is going to join Napoli or not. He might not play this game. Beto, last year, scored 11 goals. He's slightly injured. Probably he won't play. The good thing for Udinese is that they got a lot of young players and they normally improve in the second season. So you would be hopeful they won't get relegated for sure. No wins in the last 5 games of last season. So Udinese finished the season very, very badly. Milan to win comfortably. It could be 2-0, 1-0. Milan to win 2-0 anyway, 225.
And actually, they were very weak, Udinese against Chelsea, one of the friendlies I managed to watch this summer. So Milan to win against Milan to win 2-0 against Udinese in their opener. Now the following match, Lecce against Inter Milan. Lecce at home in Via del Mare Stadium. It touches, my heart, Danny, to see the return of Lecce to Serie A, which they won the Serie B last season. I have to say that in the early 2000, one of my teams was Lecce because of Javier Chevanton, the Uruguayan striker who had a great spell there. Inter with the return, Danny, of Romelu Lukaku. I believe they're still trying to swallow how they let the Scudetto slip from their hands last season, that night in Bologna. Do you see them being stronger with the return of the Belgium?
I think they are stronger because they have added more options in attack. They had already a very good attack. Let's not forget last season Inter with Inzaghi scored more goals than what they scored under Conte the previous season, and they build on a very good team. And the return of Lukaku is a proven goal scorer in Italy. I think, look, when people say Lukaku wasn't cut for the Premier League, he wasn't made for the Premier League, I don't believe to that too much. I think the team has to play to a player's strengths, and Chelsea were not playing to his strengths, whereas Inter will, and I'm sure Inzaghi will have different plans to use Lukaku, either as the pivot to hold the ball and have people running in behind, or playing a little bit more on the counter and make sure that Lukaku gets a lot of space to run in with the ball. Of course, a lot of services from midfielder. What Lukaku is going to enjoy more in Italy is going to have more time on the ball, of course, because, the league, it's a slower pace and there are less physical defenders in Serie A than there are in the Premier League. There is no Giorgio Chiellini in Serie A anymore, which Lukaku suffered a lot. So anyway, I think the Belgian is going to hit the ground running. Inter have improved overall this season, although it's been a very low-cost market. They added Aslani as another midfielder instead of, he can play in the place of Brozovic, Mkhitaryan, of course, from Roma, Bellanova, Onana, the second goalkeeper. But let's not forget they lost a very important player in Perisic. The wing-backs are so important in the 3-5-2. And now they travel to Salento, to the newly promoted Lecce, which have 6 or 7 debutants in Serie A in the starting 11. Also, the manager, Marco Baroni, debuts in Serie A. They done a big signing this season. They got Cisse from Zurich, 20 goals last season in Switzerland, but it is the Swiss league. Let's see how he adapts. I'm sure they will set up quite attacking. They will set up with a 4-3-3 with Strefezza and Di Francesco on the sides. These are two experienced players in Serie A. The concern from Inter is that so far in pre-season, they've always conceded in each single game, but with Lautaro, with Lukaku, Correa coming from the bench, Dumfries, if he stays there, they are much better than Lecce. Let's go for goals. Let's go for the goals market here, and maybe on the safe side, over 3 goals, 2.1. So it means if he finishes 2-1 each side, 3-0 each way, you don't lose your stake. More than 3 goals, you win 2-1, 2.1.
Perfect. And so, Danny, if we were talking about expectations with Milan and with Inter, what to say about Juventus, which is our next game? Juventus at home against Sassuolo. They got Angel Di Maria, the return now of Paul Pogba. Although he's injured, he won't be able to play against Sassuolo. You mentioned just now about the friendlies, Inter friendlies during this summer. I watched many of the Juventus friendlies also this summer, and I don't know how much we can take at the end of the day from friendlies, but the feeling I've been having from Massimiliano Allegri's team so far, it wasn't great, Danny. That it's a team that at least it looks like they lack in a bit of stability and cannot control matches. They added Bremer in defense, which is a good addition, but always the feeling that if they hit the back of the net early on the game, then everything can unfold very nicely for them, at least in their debut. But Sassuolo finished 11th last season, and it's always a good team to watch. What do you think of this one?
No, I think that you're right. With Juventus, they need to make sure this season they control games more than what they do last season, and they lack a regista, they lack a playmaker. They would love someone like Brozovic, for example, someone who can get the tempo right of the team, and that's why they're chasing Paredes, for example, from PSG. They lack that regista. Also, the injury of Pogba adds a little bit to the complexion because Pogba is a very special player for Serie A. It is a player that no other teams can have. So not having him for 5 weeks, it's difficult. And now who's going to play? Maybe the young Miretti. There is probably Fagioli as well there. So a little bit of a headache for Allegri. But Allegri said this season they are targeting the Scudetto. Well, they must do it after 2 very disappointing years. And they need to make sure also they score more goals. In the end, last season, Juventus finished with the 7th attack. Also, even if they added Vlahovic in January, they weren't creating enough. So obviously Di Maria will be tasked with that. And I think the Argentine, if he's willing to play, if he's informed, if he's not thinking too much about the World Cup, he's the best player in Serie A. I mean, I think he can really run riot and make the difference. Let's see what kind of mindset he will have before and after the World Cup. But that for everyone involved in the World Cup, but for the Argentines a little bit more because they got good hopes, I think. Anyway, they need another defender apart from Bremer because also they lost De Ligt. I think they got issues at left back with Alexandro. There is enough depth there. Having said that, I think it's going to be a game with few goals in here because Juventus are going to set up to attack. Sassuolo is a team that doesn't like to sit back and defend too much. Actually, last year, they won here in Turin 2-1. Let's see how they replace Scamacca. Went to West Ham. The big gamble for them now is Agustin Alvarez. They signed him from Peñarol, 21 years old, 33 goals in 70 games for the Uruguayan. But, a little bit of hit and miss. It doesn't mean always on the score sheet, if you like. Will they lose other big players, Sassuolo? Because, we know Raspadori has been linked to Napoli, Frattesi has been linked to Milan and Roma. Let's see, because, they are a very difficult client to deal with. They sell players very, very expensively. By the way, last year, Sassuolo were the 3rd best away attack, 37 goals scored on their travel, and they beat Inter away, Milan away, Juventus away. Over 1.25 goals in the first half, which means if there is only 1 goal in the first half, you lose half your stake. More than 1 goal in the first half, so 2-0, 1-1, for example, 205.
Perfect. And from there, Danny, to Verona against Napoli. The question is, how's going to be live without Lorenzo Insigne, Dries Mertens, and Kalidou Koulibaly for Napoli? Well, we will get to know actually very shortly when they visit, as we just said, Verona on Matchday 1. For sure, it's a massive challenge for Luciano Spalletti and for the president De Laurentiis to rebuild this team and to keep them fighting for top 4. For Verona, we still don't know if they will come with Giovanni Simeone or whether he's bound for Borussia Dortmund to replace Sebastian Haller. So, where do you put Napoli? Can they still fight for that top 4?
I don't think we should discard them so easily. Let's not forget last year Napoli, for a good spell of the season until October, November, they were unbeaten. They had the best defense. They were really organized. They made a lot of improvement under Spalletti. Yeah. Then the Africa Cup of Nations, the injuries, they lost a few players. Yes, the team kind of lost a little bit of the shape, but their away form last year, Napoli, was very good. They had the best away defense, only 15 goals conceded. Where they lost the title was at home. They lost a lot of points in a criminal way at home at the Maradona. But, it is a new era for Napoli without also Spina, for example. We don't know the future of Fabian Ruiz. So I'm sure they're going to add more players in the last few days. Whether they're going to be ready to play at the Bentegodi against Verona, I don't know. But we've seen some good things in pre-season from the Georgian, Kvaratskhelia. You forget me if I pronounce it incorrectly. But he's been a very handy player playing on the left-hand side of, on the right-hand side of Napoli attack. Now they got a little bit more strength in that at the back. They added Oliveira from Getafe, another left back. So, there is an option there with Mario Ruiz. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. So that's why I went for both to score in the second half, which pays 3, but only maybe betting half a unit because, it's a high stake, so you can always cover your losses there. So both to score in the first half pays 3 because Verona scored 65 goals last year, only 4 goals less than Milan. But they gone through some changes. They got a new manager in Cioffi, who joins from Udinese. They lost Caprari to Monza. They probably will lose Simeone. So now it's only down to Barak. Last year, Verona had 3 strikers in double figures, which a lot of teams don't have. So what do they got? They got Henry from Venezia with a decent season, although he got relegated. But again, Verona, it is a team that is aggressive, is good to watch, but sometimes they lack that composure, slowing the time of the game down. They, again, need a midfielder who can control the tempo. They have it in Veloso, but he's often injured, if you like. That's why they lost far too many games at home last season, Verona, to be trusted. 7 defeats at the Bentegodi. So that's why I go for goals, both to score in the second half, which pays 3.
So that's Daniele's tip for Verona at home against Napoli. From there, we move on to a game which, for me, it raises the expectations as well. Salernitana at home against Roma. Danny, there used to be a topic surrounding Jose Mourinho's managerial career, which was always his third-year syndrome, when everything unraveled quick for the bad. I'm saying used to be because in the last few years, actually, the impression is that Mourinho's volcanic way of managing ended up erupting even before the third year. Last season, he couldn't make a top 4, but of course, he lifted the Conference League for Roma. Now he has Paulo Dybala. He has Wijnaldum, for me, an exceptional midfielder who I hope he can rediscover his Newcastle and Liverpool form. So is now top 4 finish the challenge, or the bar has been lifted for Roma?
Look, Roma have been for 2 seasons very far away from the top teams. They've always been very good against the small teams, so they always beat the like of Salernitana and other small teams at home and away. Where they struggled was in big games. And Mourinho last season hasn't really changed the complexion, although Roma could say they were a bit unlucky with some referee decisions. They were unlucky overall. They were the team that hit the post and the bar the most in Italy, for example, and they play some good stuff. Now they're adding experience to their team, and finally, Mourinho cannot complain about the signings. He has really the team that he likes, especially in midfield with Matic, with Wijnaldum. They might add another central defender as well. They got Selic, which has a replacement at right back. They will have back Spinazzola as well, who's been injured for most of the season. So I think the team is complete. Even if they sell Zaniolo, they will still be very competitive, and probably they will reinvest those money. But it's about stability with Roma. It's a team that is able to shut games down, to see teams off. They kept 15 clean sheets last season in Serie A. So for this particular game, I see no trouble for them. For the season going forward, it's about winning the big games against the big teams. Last year, the away form was very poor. There were 7, 8 defeats, if you like. Salernitana, another small revolution as always. A few players coming and going. Last year, it was a miracle. They got saved with Nicola in the end. But usually they lost heavily against top teams and without scoring. They only held Milan 2-2 for a draw. I think what happens is the fact that the season is starting so early. The small teams are going to be penalized because normally the small teams do all the business in the transfer at the end, and now we go a month almost to go. So some of the small teams are not going to be ready. The formation will still not going to be ready. So I think Roma has the advantage. Asian handicap, -1 for Roma, I think is a very good price. 204 means if Roma wins 2-0, you win 204. If they only win with 1 goal margin, you do not lose your stake.
From Salernitana Roma to a match with a team who is back in Serie A, which is Monza. Monza at home against Torino. Monza, which is the very first time in their history, Danny, you can correct me, playing in Serie A.
Right.
There will be many eyes, I believe, on them mostly, I think, because the Lombardi club, Danny, is owned by the former Italian Prime Minister, Silvio Berlusconi. Monza won the promotion playoff at the expense of Pisa in extra time. And I'm a bit surprised, Danny, that the bookies are putting them in a parity almost for a win, 2.86 for the home win and 2.65 for the Torino win. It's true that Il Toro lost their best defender in Serie A last season, the Brazilian Gleison Bremer, who we said moved to Juventus. But we are talking about a team that finished 10th last season in Serie A. So why do you believe the bookies are placing Monza quite in a parity with Torino for this one?
I think mainly for two reasons, because Monza have added a lot of experience in the transfer. So they bought a lot of players with Serie A experience. Cragno, the keeper, Ranocchia from Inter, Sensi, Pessina, Caprari. These are players that used to play for the national team up until a couple of years ago. So obviously, Berlusconi and Galliani, they come back to Serie A. They don't want to be the punching bag of Serie A. So they're going to give it a good fight, and I think they will. Also, they got a very good structure, Monza. In Serie B, they've been competitive for a couple of years. Stroppa, the manager, plays good football. Has got a bit of experience in Serie A. And if you look at Torino, maybe the bookies understand that Torino, they do lack cutting edge up front. They do lack a center forward. They're going to be without Belotti. Belotti is a free agent. They're probably going to join Roma. Last season away, Torino only scored 17 goals. Not many. So they are very short at the moment. They were the fifth best defense, Torino, though. So, Juric team, always very aggressive, very solid, pressing really, really high. Let's see what they do, because, this is a big season for some of the Torino youngsters, especially Ricci midfielder. Then they got Radonic from Marseille. But, there are still a few doubts about even who's going to play in goal, for example, for Torino, which, is not a great, it's not a great position to be. Both teams are going to play 3-5-2. They're going to be trying to keep it tight. I cannot expect too many goals on this one, to be fair. Both to score, no. 205.
Perfect. That was then Monza against Torino. Now we move on to Fiorentina at home against Cremonese. Last season for the Viola was a good one, I believe, Danny, at least judging by the final standing on the table. 7th for Vincenzo's Italiano's team, which is the best season since 2015-2016 when they finished 5th. The talk these days is whether Nikola Milenkovic will stay or no, but they have Luka Jovic, although I don't know how many supporters are very excited about him anyway. And on the other side, we have another of the newly promoted teams. So for this one, shall we think on Asian handicaps, or what is your prediction, Danny?
My prediction here, it's very similar to the Asian, but I go for half-time, full-time Fiorentina, which pays 2.15. So Fiorentina to be winning a half-time and full-time at home against Cremonese, newly promoted. And why I say that? Because last time Fiorentina were the second best home team in Serie A. They improved a lot from the previous season. Third best home attack. They kept playing really well even after Vlahovic left. And now, obviously the arrival of Jovic is interesting. He's a former Real Madrid player. He was tipped to be better than what he turned to be, but I think he still got a lot to prove. But also the signing the Fiorentina made in January, Cabral, Icone, they got more time now to settle in. They got a proper pre-season under Vincenzo Italiano, so I think we'll see more of them in this season. Then there is a very exciting right back, Dodò, who they got from Shakhtar. We know he's very good at going forward. Let's see how good is he at defending in Italy. Anyway, a new goalkeeper for Fiorentina, Gollini. They will play in the Conference League. Things look good for La Viola, and they play probably the weakest team in Serie A, Cremonese, newly promoted, a historic team. Has been there in the 90s, everyone likes Cremonese, but the reality is that they got 7 new players. They got a few debutants. Also, the manager is new. Alvini last year was managing in Serie B with Perugia. He finished with the second best defense in Serie B, but only mid-table. In Serie B, Cremonese, they were not scoring that many either. They were the sixth best attack of Serie B last season, and we know there is a gap between Serie A and Serie B. Normally, 1 or 2 teams in the last 10 years, newly promoted, have gone back to Serie B. Again, as I said before, for the newly promoted teams, they are incomplete. So I think they will suffer, especially in this game. Half-time, full-time, Fiorentina 2.15.
Next one, we have Lazio Bologna in the Italian capital. Danny, when you look at Lazio's numbers last season, we see that only Inter with 84 goals score more than the 77 of Lazio. Actually, against Bologna, they have won both matches 3-0 home and away. However, Udinese, a team that finished 12, conceded the same amount than Lazio with 58. The impression is that, at least for me, that if Sarri would have found a better defensive performance, for sure we would have been talking of a Champions League this time around. Alessio Romagnoli, Mario Gila, two of the new faces have arrived to fix that. Would that be enough? For sure, might be enough against Bologna, but what about in the long run? And also, shouldn't they ease a little bit the reliance on Ciro Immobile? Of course, he always delivers 31 goals last season, but then the second goal scorer for Lazio is 20 goals behind.
Well, I think with Lazio, you would expect a Sarri team to improve in the second year. You know, Sarri takes time to get his tactics and his ideas to the players. And let's not forget, Lazio have been playing 3-5-2 with Simone Inzaghi for many, many years. Come Sarri, they go back to a back four. They really have very good right back or left back. They had to adapt, for example, Lazzari as a right back, who has always been a wing back. So you would expect to get better. And I think actually in the second part of the season, Lazio, they got better. They were conceding less goals. At home, they were good. You know, they were the fourth home team, the second best attack, as you mentioned. I think they will create chances. It's about finding the balance, really, and not leaving themselves too exposed. But let's not forget Lazio, for example, last season at home, they beat Inter 3-1, and they gave Roma a good game. They beat them as well. So they are going to create chances. I'm looking to see also the new playmaker they got, Marcos Antonio from Shakhtar, on top of the ones that you already mentioned. Let's see how much they improve. And with Bologna, again, it's a team that is not there or anywhere. It's a bit like, put them like in the same league as Udinese, Sampdoria. What can they achieve? Can they achieve 50 points or more? I don't know. I mean, they'll be in the region. They've sold two of the good players, Hickey and Tiat, after they sold Scovolsen in January. So they're very rich, but they haven't invested much. People think that this is going to be a transition year for Bologna. They got a new sporting director, Giovanni Sartori, who's been at Atalanta for many, many times and built a very good team. Maybe him and Mihajlovic, they don't really agree in certain things. It could be the last year for Mihajlovic as well. Maybe a safe salvation for Bologna and start building again from next season. Last year, away from home, they were very poor. They lost 9 games. They will rely on Arnautovic. If he turns up, Bologna have the chance. If he has a quiet day, no chance for the Rossoblù. Lazio Asian handicap -1, 205.
The first one of the last two matches we still having in this match, the one in Serie A, is Sampdoria against Atalanta. Dan, if there is something we learn about Serie A in the last few years, at least from my side, is Atalanta is always ready to entertain. We got used to Gianpiero Gasperini's attacking football. The way they defend, almost one big one all over the pitch. However, last season was as a bit of a disappointing. They could not progress to the knockout stage of the Champions League, defeated by RB Leipzig then in the quarterfinals of the Europa League. And most importantly, they finished 8th in Serie A. So they are without continental competition this year. Can you see them going back to their best? Or after many years, we are now witnessing the decline of this side? At least for their debut, they will travel to a stadium where last season they left with a 3-1 in their bag.
It's a very good opportunity for Gasperini to rebuild, because this is the first time in 5 years they don't play in Europe. They got more time to train and to exploit new tactics. Gasperini is a very good tactician. He plays one of the best footballs in Italy, one of the most modern football. I think last season they didn't strengthen enough to play in 2 competitions, including the Coppa Italia. The team was not deep enough, and then they had a couple of injuries up front with Muriel and Zapata. Yes, and in the end, they conceded far too many goals. and they don't score many goals. The top goal scorer was Pasalic with 13 goals. But away from home, Atalanta normally are good. Last season, they were third in the table, level with Inter. There are some interesting youngsters in Atalanta, like Scalvini, already debuted with the national team. So, I think we could expect them to do well, or at least a challenge for a Conference League finish. Sampdoria, they're a bit enigmatic because they've only signed one player, Juricic from Sassuolo. They're going to lose Damsgaard, the most talented player, to Brentford. Lack of quality, lack of inspiration, very defensive, often play only with one up front, Caputo on top. Look, this is a very difficult one to judge. I'm going to go for the stronger team. I'm going to go for Atalanta to win, 195.
And our last one is Empoli at home against Spezia. It's difficult to think about goals for this one. They will have to dig deep. They draw both matches last season. They both flirted with relegation last season. And I believe, Danny, that nothing tells us that is going to change this season as well.
They're going to struggle, and I think they're going to both be sucked into the relegation battle. Spezia more than Empoli, I think. Both with new managers. Gotti for Spezia, former Udinese. Paolo Zanetti for Empoli, former Venezia. Venezia were playing good football. They simply didn't have enough strength. Let's see what he does with Empoli. We also sold some of the good players. Spezia last season were the youngest team in Serie A, so being safe is a great achievement. Normally, when they play at home, they were good value because despite everything, I think Spezia have got goal scorers. Gyasi, Zola, Verde, Agudelo. They can find a goal, but only 5 wins last season at home for Spezia. Empoli, two new strikers, Destro, proven goal scorer, and Satriano, which we will see is on loan from Inter. They lost Aslani, they lost Viti. Both teams need to sign more players until the end. Cagey game, first half draw, 225.
Perfect. So that was all the tips and predictions for Matchday 1 in Serie A. But before we go, I will ask you, Danny, for your safe bet for this first round of fixtures, and also, of course, what about your ACCA?
Okay, the safe bet is Fiorentina Cremonese over 2.5 goals, which pays 170. I think Fiorentina home are always entertaining. They like to attack. Defense sometimes is a little bit leaky. Cremonese might nick one. It could finish 3-1, for example. And the ACCA, 4 games. Milan to win against Udinese. Monza, Torino under 2.5 goals. Fiorentina, as we said, all show long to win against Cremonese. And Roma to take the lead against Salernitana. Total odds, 5.26.
5.26, then that's Daniele's ACCA. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Daniele Fisichella with all the insight for Matchday 1 in Serie A. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for all the latest uploads. Thank you very much, Danny.
Ciao, Edu. Ciao, Edu.
Don't worry, another
good habits die hard. Ciao, exactly. Leo. Ciao.
I'm only keeping his chair warm, as I'm being said.
Okay, I've been there for 2 years. Ciao, Leo.
Ciao, Danny. Thank you.
Ciao.